I think we've got to look at the fact that currently, if you talk about technology, the UK, when it comes to IT or ICT as it's known in education, has been a leader. This is why in January 6,000 people will go to the BET show from abroad to see basically various things that are coming out of Britain. Sadly, in the next few years, that lead will actually disappear. And that has come because of the way the provision of IT has been sold in the UK, because it's not been a kind of central system. It's been basically lots of little companies all competing for a slice of this big cake. And that's led to a lot of innovation.
Yeah, I mean, in sort of thinking about today's meeting, I looked at the title and thought about the phrase, the future world of work, and I looked at that as a whole. And I looked at it individually. I thought, I imagined we'd be talking about the future of some sense, looking at work not just in the narrow confines of London or the UK, but in terms of the world, and then looking at what type of work we're moving into. And for my own very narrow speciality in computing and artificial intelligence, I sort of envisaged the future world of work in technology and thought about what I could see happening in the near term and the medium term. And then I thought, well, what new technologies might be coming on stream in the next 10 to 20 to 50 years' time that could radically shape the sorts of work that people are doing. And lots of very interesting examples have been displayed already. But to address the first question, the future world of work in technology, that's looking at people who are geeks like myself, who work in computing, who develop the new iPhones, laptops of tomorrow. I see a real pressing need here with respect to education that I think people are turning the elephant in the room or ignoring. But that's unfortunately the level of quality of mathematics education that we're getting with our applicants. Yeah. Sadly, despite whatever figures are given, the raw reality of the fact that in the context of learning technical subjects, the mathematical education our students and applicants are getting does not meet the level that it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and more importantly, doesn't meet the level that we need to teach our subject. But there are less people studying mathematics at university, I presume less people studying mathematics at PGCE to go out and become mathematics teachers, and that means there are less qualified people teaching mathematics at school. And although I have immense sympathy from a philosophical perspective on sort of constructivist approaches to learning, I also don't agree that all skills can be learned in this way, and particularly mathematics. It's just not the case that you can let someone play with number indefinitely and they will come up with an understanding of 2 to the n, for example. Such things can't be learned by mere experience. There's a certain body of pragmatic knowledge that needs to be mastered in order to deal with these concepts. And unfortunately, these are real concepts that you need to use when we're developing the new hardware and software for tomorrow's computing devices. Now, it seems sadly, if you look at the demographic of the students that are coming into our departments in computing and cybernetics, and I've worked in both departments, you see the people who are coming to us with these high-level analytic mathematical skills are getting drawn from a narrower and narrower circle, and they tend to be, unfortunately, in my political context, from a sort of private school, privately educated background, people for some reason or another, they're still coming to us with the skills that we need to teach. So it's simply there's a political issue here that the people who are getting in positions of power in designing the new hardware and software of tomorrow are being drawn from a narrower and narrower spectrum of society, and I think that's one thing that we ought to think about. Aside from the sort of politics of the development of the technology, there's the politics of work itself. It doesn't seem to me that there's a homogeneity across the world of what work will mean in 50 years' time. No matter what technology we develop, I would imagine the sort of work that's going on in China will be very different from the sort of work going on in India, will be different from the sort of work going on in Sri Lanka, which will be different from the work going on in France and England and in Switzerland. Perhaps in a very, very rich, not particularly well densely populated country, you can imagine the use of personal robotics being much more important, and perhaps people having the sci-fi vision of a personal robot entity to help out in the house. That may well become feasible for some very rich societies. It isn't obvious to me at the moment that in 50 years' time everybody in China is going to have their own personal robot. And then finally, in the context of technologies, one thing I wanted to bring your attention to, there's some very, very exciting work going on at Bath University, a project called the RAP project. And this is building on something that a guy called von Neumann talked about in the 60s, which is the idea of a universal machine. Now, you're already familiar with the universal machine in the context of software, and that's a computer. That's one type of universal machine. It can compute any given computable function. But von Neumann envisaged a machine that can manufacture anything, including itself. And this is a very radical concept, and there are people in Bath already, and I think across the world, moving towards developing such a thing. Perhaps in 10 or 20 years' time, we will have a machine fully capable, given some energy and base raw material of constructing anything. Now, when that happens, including itself, imagine you give one of those machines to a society in Nigeria, or in China for that matter, and they have access to raw material and energy, which are the two extra things you need to add into the equation. Such a society has the potential, first of all, to build lots and lots of these machines from one initial one, and then to manufacture anything it wants. So you're moving away the manufacturing base, away from the skilled Western sort of world of manufacturing, away from the large-scale manufacturing that perhaps the East have been associated with, and you're sort of unskilling it and making that available to everybody. And I think that might radically shape the world of work, not just in the UK, but around the world.
With regards to education, I agree with the challenge, the gap and the opportunity in addressing hard skills such as math and other sciences. But I think also a focus now and for the future is on the softer skills of play as well. We can't assume that we have technically literate young people because they're on social networking sites babbling back and forth to each other, when the degree of understanding of their parents is even less than that, and that of the teachers is quite mixed. I have an 11-year-old daughter and get to see what she's doing at school and see what the different teachers are bringing in on an ongoing basis, and they're getting very little guidance. They have a little bit of access, but very little guidance of actually learning useful things on the computer. And as technology evolves, so too does the need for, I think, structured play. So they're actually creating something, not just creating online profiles and chatting, and they're going to do that anyway.
It's been mentioned a couple of times, the idea of blending. I think for me that's really, really interesting in terms of how the constructs that we have now are going to dissolve, and these kind of representations of school and work and home are going to blend and combine, and learning, play and your home life become more merged. I think that's going to open everything up completely.
I think about work, what's work and what's the future world of work. And actually, although I guess I might say that working in the careers area, there's pretty much acceptance now of what career means. And everyone has a career, and a career is basically your path through life. That means it's not just about work, it's about work and everything else you do as well. If you keep that as your kind of paradigm, then you sort of sidestep the issue of is it education for work or education for something else. Actually, it's education for your future. I think that's quite a handy sort of mechanism to hold that. And actually, it sort of reinvents the word career, which is quite useful because it's probably wrongly viewed by a lot of people at the moment. It's shifted a long way from something 30, 40 years ago, where it was about a process of matching an individual to a job, to something about preparing you so you've got a toolkit to take into your future.
Can I just say with regards to career education, I think that's something that's going to change quite a lot. And when we look at ICAD and what we're doing on ICAD, it is actually about empowering, which goes back to what you were saying earlier. I know when I was at school, I went into a little porter cabin and was told that this was the career that I should do. And actually, I think we're really changing the face of that. And we're empowering young people to explore what career they want to do. And also I think that because that's happening at home and in a private area, then actually what they might have been embarrassed about pursuing before in front of their peer group, they can actually explore and look into in their own personal way. So the good side of that is that we're potentially looking at a generation of people that are in careers that they want to be in, not that they've been told to be in, or in an area that we all know, if you're in a career that's in an area that interests you or a subject that you're passionate about personally, you become more successful usually because you're following your passion rather than what someone else has told you to do. I think that actually then we've got a better workforce in that way because they're more dedicated to their jobs.
And it's interesting because it has come up a number of times from different people in the sessions, and there's a concern about passion and about actually young people and not their ability to be passionate, because of course that's absolutely there, but the allowance for them to be passionate about something. In, you know, maybe, I mean, we've all around the table got our passions. Quite obviously, one of mine's been telepresence. Yeah, you know, when I've just been on it. You know, so it's like, but yeah.
I mean, it's a very privileged position. Probably everybody around this table's got a job there, at least tolerably happy with, if not passionate.
Yes.
Education.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the area
Yeah.
I come from in the UK, which is Teesside, nearly all the traditional employers have gone. What's replaced them? Sort of whack jobs and jobs doing answering telephones. So it's very difficult to get passionate about taking a call about someone's problem on Orange or something like that, which is what most of my peers, as they were from school, have ended up doing, or some really tedious job in a pound shop in what used to be a thriving town. So I think we're looking at this. Yes, we can get passionate. I get absolutely passionate about what I do. But I think we're in a very privileged position compared to most people in the country.
And we have the career profiles up on our website, so
Yes.
people can see, you know, exactly who is working in that job, and can see, you know, it's not just for a certain age or gender or range. You know, there's various different people can work in various different jobs, and I think we need to show that all these various different careers, especially some that you sort of listed here, you know, vertical farmers and a body part maker, we need to make those jobs now sort of realistic and achievable for students, because if they see those, you know, it's all very well if we go into the school that Leanne went into in Exeter and sort of talk about these, and they may sort of understand them a bit more, but if we go into other schools that don't even use whiteboards or whatever, then they're really not going to think, you know, they can achieve these sort of jobs. So we really need to sort of work on that, and I think equality and diversity and gender issues we need to work on, as well as sort of making them realistic and achievable. And I think also we need to be clear on salary, because especially with our student audiences, that's sort of the primary thing that they want to know from the outset, you know, what is the salary, and then also putting that into context, so not comparing it to a Premiership footballer, but comparing it to sort of the national average and that sort of thing.
We try and take what are probably seen as quite romantic careers. Like, if you ask us, you know, a 14-year-old boy what they want to be, they a lot of the time want to be a Premiership footballer. It's very doubtfully going to happen. So we take quite romantic, quite celebrity careers, and we make them realistic a lot of the time as well on ICID. So we'll say, actually, you want a career in sports, look at all the other opportunities that are available.
Mark made a point about the number of the backgrounds of young people coming into kind of computer science and cybernetics and so on. And the interesting points there about the kind of glamorous aspirations, if you like, romantic aspirations of young people in school. And I think there's an important kind of word that hasn't been used as we kind of went around the table just now around this, which is class. Because, you know, recently people just kind of like to shy away from that, particularly people who now technically occupy the class that we're in, you know, sit around this table, and class is a fundamental issue.